Well, how are you?
Good. Did you get sick too?
I did. I've got the cold. The cold is making its way.
Yeah. Yeah, I had it from December 21st until actually first day was yesterday.
Oh, really?
I had that thing back in November. It lasted 6 weeks. I ended up at the doctor. He said,
I had doctor twice I went
I
to.
thought I had pneumonia. I was hacking so much overnight.
He'll know who it is.
Your lungs are clear. So you just got capillaries are building
And I know,
up.
like, he's just aging it, you know, or not aging it, but he's
It was horrible. It was just horrible.
all he's doing.
I'm not very encouraged.
Sorry. Sorry.
It'll be all
One
right.
of the good things. I remember one night I was coughing so much, my ribs.
Very good.
Well, I got thirsty. I couldn't even
The season.
I couldn't even hardly cough. It hurt so bad here, and it still does. But at least it's starting to get better now because I'm not coughing as much. But yeah, it's nasty, nasty, nasty. We got lots of people here. What's going on?
I think mine is a byproduct of New Year's Eve. That's what I think.
Okay.
You didn't do that thing where you went from the sauna into the snowbank, did you?
Nope.
Kiss somebody with a cold?
Maybe.
Right. Well, it was worth it then, I hope.
When I was up in Esco, I went to a Christmas Eve party one year and somebody had a sale and the outdoor snow thing. I did that.
The good fins up there in Esco,
All
yeah.
the Mackies, they make them up. They're all
Yeah, that's tough on you.
Oh, the school improvement plan or the multi system summer plan? I bet you that's it. I bet you that's it. Of course. I'm a little confused at that. Because I'm like, wouldn't that be considered an alternate? Why are they calling it foundations? So I was a little confused about that. So I hope they shed some light on that.
when I read all
I got a big meeting today.
I really went through all this.
There you go.
Like, you know,
Bunch of, oh yeah, people being recognized.
Presentation.
Presenting.
He's here, but he vanished.
Hello, Robert. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Deb. How you doing?
we don't have I have heard this one.
Hello, how are you? Doing well, thanks. I did. Finally wrapped up my visiting over the weekend.
Yeah, another celebration.
I did. My son and granddaughter and that crew, I was gonna go down the day before New Year's Eve, and then we had that crummy weather. So yeah, it was good. How about you guys? You had a warmer climates? Good.
We got lots of things going on tonight.
How's that? Well, kids have a good time.
Once the person gets we know all about that. That was good fun.
It was a surprise, right? They didn't know that you were gone.
I was just kicking one for the team. I figured I don't even care. I'm just taking one for the team. I'm just going and doing my thing. I wish that
That's great. That is great.
remember it.
Hello, how are you? Well, thanks. Busy. We got a bunch of everybody's here to either be recognized or to present.
One class I didn't see coming this back. But that was there was no I don't know if that's even taking the pictures.
Early afternoon. Maybe early in the afternoon. Gotta be about 5 hours since we're out of there. Does that sound about right?
And the one thing we were worried about was
Alright, well, we'll get it figured out. I'm pretty flexible, so we'll pick what works for you and
one big
we'll hit the road.
we didn't know what to
Hello there, how are you? Friday return will be an early get up.
Yeah, I'm going with you.
You two can sleep coming.
I don't
I
care.
gotta be back here for like 10:30.
Well, I figured it would. I get up every morning at 4 a.m. So
It won't hurt you at all.
yeah, it won't be a big deal for me. So, yeah, no, I'd like to go to work that day so I don't have to take an extra vacation day. So,
Yeah. That's kind of same for me. Usually 4:30 to get up, so yeah.
There's not really anything.
he never did a haircut.
There's one last session and then we're kind of wrap up.
Feels
They understand that it's a travel day for a lot of people, so meteor sessions don't happen on Friday morning. About 5 seconds.
I'll know more. I'm going to call this Committee of the Whole meeting of the Spooner Area School Board to order. Roll call.
Present.
Present.
Here.
Deb Olson.
here.
Here.
Marcia Scherz.
Here.
Paul Johnson.
Here.
I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. We'll move right on to presentations. We have student, staff, and community recognition.
Mr. Hopke, you coming too? Why don't you go first? Go ahead.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to take a moment to recognize a staff member that's come in this year and has done a great job working with our students and really developing the musical talents of our students, and just shown some great dedication and undying passion for music in our kids. And it's Chris Knutson, our music teacher at the Spooner Elementary School. Please.
Tackle these together?
I'm just going to follow you.
All right. Well, Mr. Scherz and I would like to recognize 3 people who worked really, really incredibly hard to make the middle school and high school winter concerts a success. We'd like to recognize Greta Linton, Joe Scafidi, and Janet Medley for all of their work.
Very nice.
Last person we'd like to recognize is Josh Fiesel. Josh is currently working, that's what he does. And again, he had an opportunity to present at the physical education conference in the Dells, and Josh is recognized for the things that he does in not only the Fayette area, but specifically in weightlifting. So he was recognized, or we want to recognize him for his abilities and all the things he does, all the things that he's involved with in the high school. So Josh Fiesel, I will get him this tomorrow.
Thank you to our staff and those nominations. We'll move on to referendum update, item B.
So a great flurry of activity kind of in the late days of 2019, concluding with the referendum resolutions that went forward. So now we enter the next phase of this initiative, where we'll have about a 100-day block of time where we'll really work to provide information to the public so that they are well informed when they go into the voting booth on that first Tuesday in April. We have Luke Schultz with us tonight from CISA 10 to talk about next steps.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks for having me here tonight. Main goal tonight is just to give you guys an update. I know there's been a lot of work up to this point, and then it's kind of what are our next steps and what are our responsibilities. So that's where I'm here tonight. First of all, congratulations. To be completely honest with you, the toughest part is past you. That's getting to the scope of work and finalizing that to a resolution. So congrats. You guys did an awesome job with that. And now looking at next steps is that marketing piece. Very early on in the process, I gave you guys a timeline that was from the beginning to the end. So you will see a lot of, after what you pass the resolution, is that marketing and the planning and getting out to the community outreach. That's why you guys hired us. So a lot of behind the scenes work is what our marketing team is currently already drafting, which I'll go through a piece with you already. But essentially that's with us working with administration and going through those details and then getting final approval with you guys with some of those things like the foam cores, but I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. So when you look at this, essentially, let's back up to a little bit of January. I printed you guys another copy just to have you see that. But up to that January timeframe, you guys have already completed everything to this. You passed your resolution. We've done a press release letting the public and the community know where you're at. CISA 10 has already come in, facilitated doing referendum videos of all your staff. Our marketing team is currently compiling that information, putting the footage together. That takes some time. Our goal with everything is to have locked in documents approved by February. So when it all comes together, your referendum webpage, your staff videos, everything's approved and up on that website at one time. So when February rolls around, we're ready to go and roll. So this January is time for our marketing team to get those documents put together, approved by administration, so we can be up and running by February. I am meeting with your administration this Friday, and we have an events calendar that we like to put together so we're all on the same page, communicating. It's very detailed. As you can see, this is February, and then March is the exact same, which is very detailed. So we need to coordinate our schedules with administration. We're doing that this Friday. And with that is documents, for example, that we develop. Our marketing team is already here. This is a poster. So when you look at your timeline, you'll see February, March is when most of this campaign takes place. So we want to have all these documents lined up, ready to go. So when it's February, we just move along in that process. So with that being said, this is very preliminary. You'll see that there's no concepts or anything that are on here because those are not finalized. 2 weeks from now, when you have your full board meeting, you guys will have a couple documents that will have those concepts on there for you guys to look at, review, say yay, no, let's make a couple changes. We make those changes so we're ready to go by February. So the goal of mine tonight is to let you guys know there's a lot of work that is going behind the scenes. We've already created or videoed the videos, working on a website, foam cores, which is essentially a big poster board that we like in the front of each one of your schools when you walk in. That's going to have your classrooms that you're looking at, the elementary school, your cafeteria, the new office locations, so that way it's transparent 100%. And if there's any questions, they can ask administration, and that can get either directed to myself if they cannot answer a technical, but those frequently asked questions are constantly on that website, getting updated through that entire process. So essentially, I wanted to come here tonight, answer any questions that you guys may have. When you look at, a lot of the times, a misconception is, well, we got to get into design. We got to design this elementary school, this 4 classrooms that we're adding on. We are not to that point yet until the referendum passes. We are not going to count how many sinks are going in there, if we're going to do a wood floor or a tile floor. Right now, it's a concept. Here's where the 4 classrooms, here's where the cafetorium is going. Referendum passes, that's when several months from there, we get into the weeds and we get into the design where we're putting packages together, then coming to you with, what do you guys think about this? So, I know there's a lot to come when you think of a referendum. The main thing when you're looking at a referendum is you guys need to be on the same page with communication for when community members come and ask you questions and talk to you. That's where we're here to help. We will have a timeline calendar looking at your next board meeting. You can assess with them. Here's a timeline. There's going to be community meetings that are on there. They're working on one right now during the day, but for informational purposes. So that your community is going to get newsletters. There's going to be a website. There's going to be backpack flyers coming home with the kids. There's going to be nonstop social media coming at the community through this process for 2 months, as David said. So we're going to be really busy. Our marketing team is doing a lot of work behind the scenes. 2 weeks, you guys will see those documents, and then you guys can direct us in a direction that says, yes, looks good, or give us a couple tweaks and we can change them, and then we move forward. And then it gets to an April referendum and it passes, and we go on from there. But I'm here to help answer any questions that you guys may have. I just wanted to come. It's been a little while since I've been here, but to also let you guys know that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes. Your administration has been awesome to work with. Very quick, responsive, easy to work with. So I'm looking forward to the next 2 months keeping that process going. Any questions from the board, or David, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I know that some board members have had questions about next steps and timelines and things like that. And it will be a campaign here, and it's 100 days, so we'll use them all and do it well. I want to be real clear on our intent. Now that the resolution's been adopted, our intent is straightforward. First time pass on this. That's the goal. So we're going to mobilize all our resources towards that end.
Absolutely. Any other questions? Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. We'll be moving on to item C, the elementary school improvement plan presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Pete Hopke, Spooner Elementary School. I'm going to be joined by Rhonda Carlton, who is early childhood and 4K coordinator, Jill Johnson, who's one of our kindergarten teachers, Chandra Stafford, one of our 4th grade teachers, and then Melissa Smith, one of our 3rd grade teachers. What we're going to talk about is just giving an update on our building status and then also our improvement plan goals.
Okay, academic update. First thing is we're implementing new math resources, which we're enjoying a lot. I can speak for kindergarten, especially hands-on. It's been a wonderful change. Other grades, if you want to share anything.
Under the vocabulary, the alignment K4, we're going to see it in the coming years, the same concepts being taught the same way.
Definitely. We've started unpacking the standards and developing common formative assessments, and it's a big work in progress, and there's been a lot of growing and a lot of changing, and it's been a really, really good thing. It's helping us kind of get together as a building and make sure we're teaching scaffolding so that what we're teaching carries into first grade and 4K carries into kindergarten. So it's been a really neat process to see. A lot of growth. We have collaborative team time with special ed and regular ed teachers, and again, we had that a long time ago, but it didn't necessarily tie into the common formative assessments and the PLC process. So that's been a nice change also to see kind of when we can fit it in, and having that collaboration time between special education and regular ed, making sure we're meeting the needs of all of our kids. Solution Tree representative has been coming in to meet with us, and we had a chance to go to the conference, and if I could put a plug in to send more, it was an amazing experience. I knew very little about this process, but I left, you got this. So it was worth going to. And then push-in model for special education teachers and students. Again, this is something that we've done in the past, but we're trying to kind of streamline it and make sure we're doing it the right way and making sure, again, that we're meeting the needs of all of our students.
All right, PBIS update. I am also the one of the PBIS coaches at the elementary school too. And this year, we really tried to focus on building relationships at a building level with students, but also staff, and really getting that connection, because relationships are super important when it comes to learning. And so we're trying to make that our number one. So we're doing a bunch of relationship activities, just really trying to tie in with the character traits and stuff that we're doing every month. We're also doing monthly Rails rallies, and we fit in the character traits of the month with those. Superhero of the Month, which is an award that students get for showing the Rails way and also modeling the character trait of the month. And this has been very successful. Heard a lot of good things from community members, that it's a very positive thing for our building, and the kids are really enjoying it and really motivated to get that award too, which is pretty cool. The Rails acknowledgement system, we are doing punch card system at our building. The kids get punches for showing the Rails way. They get to trade in their punches, go to the office, and then it goes for all school celebrations, so it's more of an all school thing that we're doing. Kids are super excited about receiving punches and getting and celebrating as a whole building. Positive school culture, we've really, at least I've noticed, last year was my first year here, but I've even noticed from last year to this year that our school culture has really improved a lot, not just amongst the students, but also the staff too. A lot more positivity with the things that we're doing. We also, I forgot to add we have shirts, the superhero t-shirts that we have all as a staff that we decided to do, and the kids really look to those also. And then we are going to be doing more monthly behavior share-outs, and we kind of came up with a template to do as a team and also to do as like a whole staff to share our behavior, the data with that too, to kind of dig more into that. And then we're also still implementing the check-in and check-out system, which is another level of our PBIS with the behavior and stuff like that. So,
All right, I'm Melissa Smith. I'm on the Family Engagement Committee, and so we held a grandparents' lunch this fall, and it was highly attended. Lots of awesome grandparents and special friends that came in. We are in the works of a webpage with extracurricular resource page of stuff that happens outside of school, but that we often get questions about, and so making contacts so that parents can more easily get that information without kind of just walking around it. We also had a military appreciation with our send-off, and we worked with PTA on that, which was really great. We held a very nice Veterans Day program. If you didn't get to see it, I know there was a video, but we had veterans there. It was really nice for our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th graders to be involved with that. We helped promote our winter concert and just did some family connection there. We just held our Hunter Brag Board, which was very positive. Lots of students at the elementary school, middle school, and a few from the high school took part in that with PTA. Just another way to connect with our families outside of school. And then we are currently in the planning stages of our Family Math Day, which will be held during the day. If anyone wants to volunteer, just know that we are looking for volunteers and would love to have volunteers on that day. It's January 23rd, and you can contact the office at the elementary school, but we're also planning family reading night along with some other events.
We'll be in Milwaukee for that one.
And I'm Rhonda, and I'm part of the Wellness and Culture Committee. And when you think of wellness, you usually think of health and nutrition, but not with our Wellness Committee. We're more about culture and community. So we're really focusing on just kind of building that culture that Chandra already talked about. And we really want our staff to know how much they're appreciated. So some of the things that we've done, and we try to collaborate and piggyback on what wellness, or what family engagement and PBIS are doing as well. Some of the things that we do is we have a thank you card that we put together, and then we do it 1 to 2 times a month, and we have either a treat or an incentive, a treat like scones or chocolate chip cookies, or incentives like an extra Jean Day or gift cards or things, and we put it together in this little wagon. And Mr. Hopke goes around to every staff member, which is 72 of us when we're all there at the same time, and delivers this incentive to them with a thank you, with a personal thank you. And either Mr. Hopke or I go down and deliver that to our 4K staff that are off-site as well. So we're including absolutely everybody that we can think of. We were also, if you were in the building at all during Christmas, you probably noticed all the doors were wrapped. That was an initiative that came from the Wellness Committee. We wanted to do something fun, and we wanted to do something that showed community within our building, and so we asked our staff to either wrap their classroom door or adopt a door in the building and wrap it any way they wanted to, and we were really amazed at how detailed people got with this and how much they enjoyed it. And we even had a group of paraprofessionals who came in on a Saturday on their own time and wrapped every door that wasn't done yet, so it was done by Monday morning before the concert. So it was really a great thing. And then we treated them all to hot chocolate and cider and some gift cards and different things like that. We're also planning some holiday events. We have a staff holiday party coming up on Friday that the wellness team is planning. And then we have some other things planned for the spring. It's been a really fun way, and I think that our staff has really appreciated it. We've tried to piggyback on the cart. It's also on the same day that we wear our t-shirts. So we're trying to build everything together, and as Chandra talked about, really build a sense of community in our elementary school. So I'm going to roll us into the next slide, which is our strengths, our challenges, some solutions, and some support. Some of the things when we got together and talked about what do we think is really going well this year in the elementary school, these are some of the ideas that we came up with, and there are myriads of other things too. These are just a few, but we really feel like the building looks very welcoming. If you've been in there, you've seen that we have some directional signs, so you now know where to go to get to each different classrooms. We have lots of sayings on the walls and just different things that have made it look very welcoming. I think we've already talked about that. We see a positive culture between students and staff now. The student-to-student relationships across grade levels are building. We have our buddy system going again. We really are pleased with how our PBIS system is working. We seem to be seeing some really good positive impact with that. We like our new math resource, as you've already heard. We're seeing an increase in parent and community involvement, and I really love what we're doing with our 4K collaboration. We have some places to go with that, as I'm sure you can imagine, as we're only in our second year, but I think our collaboration is really building, and I think it's been a really positive thing.
All right, and now I get to talk about the challenges. So what are some of the challenges that we're facing in our building? We are working on seamless implementation of our ELA, along with our building our common formative assessments. Obviously, we have some things to work on there. Some scheduling constraints with classes and locations. Our special education support is difficult to schedule, along with some communication that we're working on there. We're currently working on some vertical alignment across our grade levels. Consistent behavior management, so that's building that PBIS and just keeping it going and building on that and continuing that growth. Balancing new initiatives, so just we are working on PBIS, our common formative assessments and ELA, our new math resource, and there was one more, but there just some new initiatives that are, and then our intervention materials for our MLSS. So.
And I'll address what's being done to address some of those challenges. The first one is unpacking the standards, building depth of knowledge, followed by looking at resources. Kind of ties into what I talked about earlier, that it's challenging, but it's a very positive thing, but we just have to remember that it's going to take time to be done right and be done well. So that's at times challenging because we want to get things done. Collaborative team time in the morning. That's what we're doing right now. Again, looking at some other options that would work maybe more seamlessly than that. We're also looking at our structure within math and reading, making sure it all aligns and we have everyone working together. And our monthly PBIS meetings with staff have definitely been a positive.
All right, support. What support is needed for us? Additional PD time for training and collaborative time. We're finding out how important the collaborative team time is. And I know that we really want to have more time for collaborative team time. Special education and regular education need to be part of the scheduling process. It's really hard to meet. It's almost like we're on opposite schedules sometimes. And then additional interventionalists with reading or math. As of right now, we just have one interventionalist for reading and math at the elementary school. And I think it could make a difference if we could have a reading and a math for extra. That would open up scheduling. It would give time. It might give more collaborative team time for us also.
All right, so that concludes the building update. The next portion is going to be addressing the school improvement plan that we have for the elementary building. So getting into the first goal that we had for our improvement process, I was talking about instructional staff increasing the use of collaboratively designed formative assessments in ELA to guide instruction. So this gets back to the whole PLC process where we truly need to have that collaboration not only to develop our formative assessments, but then also to evaluate them and determine what our students need as well as what our staff needs to improve their practice and to improve student achievement. Taking a look at it, when I surveyed staff this fall, it was kind of clear that to actually collaborate to develop those common formative assessments, we were collaborating when it came to planning, but when it came to some of the crucial items as far as this PLC process is concerned, we just weren't there. Because we just didn't have that focus as far as developing common formative assessments and then evaluating them. So that is truly our big focus. I know right now our collaborative team times are really focusing on unpacking all of the ELA standards in order to get to that point where we can start, or we have started with some developing some of our CFAs, our common formative assessments, but it's going further and developing common formative assessments across the board. So we're all assessing kids the same way. We're all looking at the same data on students. Okay? The next one we had was the elementary school increased PBS Tier 2 support and resources by expanding Tier 2 services to students. What that means, for Tier 2, what we were talking about, and it was kind of brought up with Chandra, is a check-in, check-out program where you have actual a staff member that's designated as a greeter for students that have higher numbers of behavior incidents that's recorded in EduClimber that notifies staff members that they've reached a threshold that we've set. We reach out to parents saying, yes, we're going to start check-in, check-out with your student. The person that's going to be the greeter reaches out to the parents as well, and they start a process of setting up a meeting in the morning. They give a check sheet to the student, just go through the expectations with the student, kind of set them up for the day, and then as those students go through the day, teachers are marking off points, whether it's 0 to 2, 0 meaning it wasn't a good time, and then 2 is they've met all the expectations for that time frame. And they're rating on 3 different areas, whether it's respect, responsibility, or safety. At the end of the day, those students are bringing those check sheets back to the greeters, and the greeters going through that check sheet with the student. After a number of weeks, if the student is performing at 80% or better, we start what's called a fading process, and then hopefully come off from that check-in, check-out program. Where we started, last year we started a pilot program with this process, and we were able to develop it more, and we started off with 12 students. We've since gone over 20 students, both on and then have faded off. And what it's doing is we're seeing more positive student responses or behaviors. We've actually seen some decline in some of those significant behaviors across the board. So it's a positive thing. And I know we want to develop more Tier 2 supports as we go from the rest of this year and then into next year as well. Okay? For our third, it's expanding the building-wide staff communication efforts, just to increase staff knowledge of building-wide matters. Just trying to hit this up that try to keep staff informed on a number of things that are going on in the building and keep them abreast of important issues. I know one thing that staff has really indicated is a benefit is having weekly updates, just giving a weekly update as to what's going on in the building so they can stay on top of things. They also prefer to have staff meetings where it's discussion only, not just giving out a bunch of information. So make sure that we're utilizing their time efficiently and effectively. So they've really appreciated that. And then emails to support some of those other issues. So that has truly been an important thing as far as growing that communication piece, and they've really looked forward to it. And then last, what we had was continue to provide all families with detailed, individualized academic feedback and guide student growth planning. What this gets into is just how are we communicating with parents and whatnot. What I got from staff is really use some different modes of communication. The remind is a huge piece to keep parents involved and in the loop as far as information is concerned. Staff making phone calls to parents, whether it's positive or not so positive, and then communicating families weekly, whether it's with newsletters, emails, and the like. What we did find at our first trimester conferences, I had a laptop out front trying to get us parents surveyed. We didn't get a huge number of parents to complete the survey, but what we did receive from that is 80% of the parents surveyed said that we're communicating effectively with them. On one hand, that's good, but we can certainly do better. So I know that's going to be an ongoing discussion here to keep the momentum going when we're communicating to parents and being effective. So, all right, any questions?
Or anything in particular you need from us? I know this is just to inform us, but is there anything that we can do to assist you anymore? What we're doing?
I think the big thing is what the staff has already identified. Yeah. Truly, it would be very beneficial to have that additional interventionist. I know that that's hard to do because when it comes to scheduling, there are some constraints building-wise, but then also personnel-wise. That would be a nice thing to have in there. The professional development, making sure that we have adequate time and having that spaced. I know that's a calendar thing that comes up. But yeah, I think it's truly what the staff has talked about here as far as additional support, so.
Thank you, but if you do need things, the only way we're going to know is if you kind of go through those channels, then it gets to us, and maybe we can do something on our end to help you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned that one of the challenges was the implementation of your ELA. Is there anything specific or any more details?
The big thing is you guys can certainly chime in here. A big part of this is getting everyone on the same page, getting that vertical alignment. So kindergarten knows what first grade is teaching, so they're preparing their students to be ready for first grade and so on. So that's part of the challenge there. Also making sure that we're all talking the same language. We've run across that where teachers within the same grade level aren't using the same vocabulary, and it's not matching up with grades further on. So, I mean, it's just a number of items, something like that. But certainly.
I think it kind of goes with that, the last one where it says additional PD time. It goes a lot with, we have that collaborative time together for 45 minutes right now, and while that's a good start, it doesn't, we are going to spend a lot of our year this year unpacking our standards, and we get some time for talking about common vocabulary and all of that, but it's really comes down to time with our teams, time with our special education staff, time with our specialists. So that's where that PD time is really necessary, because when you have 4 hours with the same people, you can get a lot more done in 4 hours where you don't have to start and stop. And
so you said you have 45 minutes per week?
We have 45 minutes per week that we meet before school 1 day a week. For just ELA. Sorry, it is a half hour right now. We're looking at next year to go to 45 minutes, but this year it's 30 minutes, sorry. Thank you.
Thanks.
No. Any other question? Any other questions at this point?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say, and this is our final presentation for school improvement plans, and along the way, it's been really exciting and rewarding, especially where PBIS has come and the impact that it's having on our staff and our students, and I appreciate the work that everybody has put into that, because when we started implementing that 3 years ago, it was really hard to say, okay, when are we going to see some of this sort of come to the surface? And it's really exciting to see that as a board and see the results that are coming from that. And I know that it's been a lot of work, and we're thankful for all the work that's gone into that. So, great job.
Thank you. And if I may, I have a great PBIS team that is really, really working hard to make a positive impact here. So that truly does help out as well. So thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be moving on to item D, the multi-level systems of support plan presentation.
All right, I'm going to kind of get things set up here, and then I'm going to introduce some key players of our MLSS district work team and let them do a quick overview of the MLSS handbook that's been developed. But just to kind of pull things together, over the course of the last several years, a significant amount of work's been done to develop not only a framework, but also systematic procedures to ensure that we have multi-level systems of support in place to support both our struggling learners and our advanced learners in the district. Every bit of this work has been research-based, it's data-focused, and it's student-centered, and it has the end goal, has always been and will continue to be two things. First, to ensure that all students have appropriate interventions and accelerated learning opportunities available to them so that they can reach their full potential. And secondly, to provide our staff with the resources and training that they need to successfully deliver these interventions and accelerated learning opportunities for our students. Our work in the district is not complete. However, with the amount of work that has been completed, it is becoming necessary to develop a multi-level systems of support handbook so that our framework, procedures, and resources can be organized and shared in a friendly, user-friendly format. This handbook will ensure consistency throughout the district and ensure that everyone has access to the tools that they need to support our students and staff. Also, having this handbook in place should help ensure that the work that has been completed and implemented to date should remain in place even if and when there is staff and administrative turnover in the district. With that said, I would like to introduce some really key players and some people that do a lot of the work behind the scenes. They're a diverse group of people with a lot of skills, and I'm going to turn things over to them here to walk you through a 5-slide presentation on that handbook. Britta Dieger, our school psychologist, Kayla Rudy, our math specialist, Dana Lucius, a reading specialist, and Kelly Fiesel, our technology specialist.
Okay, so like Mitch just stated, MLSS is a structure to ensure that all of our students are learning at a high level. And so we just took some snippets out of the handbook that we thought were really important to look at. And these two definitions, what is MLSS definition and the why, actually come directly from the Wisconsin RTI network. So we're basing everything on what they expect and what they put forward. And then you can see the visual on the bottom right, that's also directly from the Wisconsin RTI network, and it just shows how all of these components fit together and really focuses on the strong universal instruction and the continuum of supports that we provide our students.
So the next two slides are snips of the MLSS framework. This is the first document that we created, and this framework kind of summarizes or encompasses almost the entire handbook. It is the document that encompasses the heart of MLSS, which used to be known as RTI. So response to intervention turned into multi-tiered system of support, turned into multi-leveled system of support, and now it's turned into equitable multi-leveled system of support, EMLSS. We did not change the cover of the handbook because we can't keep up at this point. So this is, if you've heard of RTI, which I'm sure all of you have, that is what MLSS is right now. So the first page, which is on this screen right now, this is the first page, really helps staff, teachers dig into their universal instruction, their core instruction. So it provides a list of guiding questions for if you're kind of wondering, is my core strong enough? Is it supporting all of my students? Or you might have a couple questions about what you're doing. These are a list of questions that you can look at with some hyperlinks to different resources to help support your core instruction. It also on the bottom has a list of different types of data that you could be looking at and different types of questions that you could ask when you're looking at your data to ensure that we are meeting the needs of all of our students. The second and third page of the framework is more small group student specific, so it gets into those interventions that we provide students, both for those students who are struggling as well as enrichment interventions. And so again, it has those guiding questions, those the guides for how big the intervention should be or the group should be, types of data we should be looking at to make sure that we are identifying students and skill deficits appropriately, matching interventions, looking at progress monitoring data to ensure that the interventions are working. If they're not working, what are we doing about it? So the next two pages are all about those smaller groups of students and helping guide us as staff to make sure that we are doing everything we can to support these students.
Then this page is just to highlight some of the additional documents that are included within that handbook. So this is a number of the documents that are in there along with the function, so what purpose those serve within the handbook. So you can see some of those key documents that are included. And again, this is to allow all stakeholders to be on the same page and know where to go if they have questions or they just need a refresher of some of that information. Dana's going to talk just about a couple of those documents.
So just for an example, the district assessment calendar, all students' grades, now we've included pre-K in on that as well, so it's pre-K through 8, do a district assessment 3 times a year, and then we can use the data that we collect from there to make those decision rules that have been implemented to determine what students need, what types of interventions, if they need a tiered intervention, or what group they should go to for when. Another thing that was created this year was the academic intervention consideration form. So not only can we use those district benchmark assessments, but we can also use the data that is collected in the teacher classrooms to identify specific skill deficits of where kids are struggling. Another example too is just doing some fidelity checks during that win time to ensure that the interventions are being implemented with fidelity. So that's all we have. If there's any questions that anybody has, or.
So this wasn't state mandated or recommended. Was this on your own, just knowing the need that was the handbook itself and putting this together?
The handbook is something that we've developed so many things over the course of the last few years. We just felt that it needed to come together. What we would like to do with your approval would be to put a link on the district webpage so everybody on the entire district has access to that. All the documents are there, immediately available. So it wasn't anything that was mandated to us. The one thing that is mandated is we have to have a process in place if we're going to identify special education students. But this is much more broad than this. This is meeting all students' needs. And I guess the really nice part for me is as I listen to building plans and things, all these things are starting to come together.
Yes.
You're hearing PBIS, you're hearing MLSS, you're hearing intervention. All of it's starting to come together throughout the district. And I think that's where we're really going to start to see our growth with kids, because you have to have that base in place in order to really start to see our test scores and our achievement.
And that's what.
I would love to take credit for developing this from scratch. It did come, a lot of it came from the Wisconsin RTI network, and it did come from other districts around the United States.
The content in it.
Some of it is direct from Spooner. Obviously, like you'll see our assessment calendar in there and our intervention schedule, things like that are specifically made for Spooner. But other things like the frequently asked questions and stuff like that, those came from handbooks across the United States.
So the foresight, I want to say that I'm appreciative of this, that you're doing this and putting it together and making it available, or requesting that we make it available to anybody that needs it, because that idea of seamlessness through changing administration and staff, we've seen how that can really hinder progress for students on all levels. So anything that we can do at an overarching level to prevent that from happening is amazing, and I think that this is a really great thing. So thank you for the work that went into it, and it looks like a really well thought out and well done document. And has it been available to staff yet, or is this all still in those?
Pieces are there, and there's also a shared folder where a lot of the documents are, but we want to make sure that it's very accessible for everybody.
Okay.
And again, it's going to be a really nice training piece when we hire new staff, so they've got a resource to go to, and we can use it for a training guide instead of remembering what you shared and what you didn't share, and where all those pieces are.
And I think an important thing too is it will be a living, breathing, changing document as our intervention toolbox grows, as those things expand and change. But that way, if we put it on the website and staff know where to access it, it's always available to them, and they're able to see those things too as they are growing and changing and improving as we grow and change and improve.
wish I could take credit for the line, but it's something I've carried with me from another person I worked with years ago. But they always used to say, and everybody here has heard me say it, if we're doing the right work, it'll be here long after we're gone. And I think this is important because, as you said, there's been a lot of starts and stops. And I think when you develop something that's solid, if people move on, that should still be there so that if people are still following those things, and the new people coming in, hopefully can add to that and make it better.
So Mitch, did you say that you needed our approval to put this out on the website, or is this going to come through some other channel where we're ultimately going to?
Probably more informational. I mean, if that's something that you feel we need approval, we certainly can do that, but we would like to get it on there, so it's accessible to everybody, and that way people in the community can see it as well.
Okay, I don't know what the technical procedure is, but I'm just asking what you want us to do.
Dr. Aslan, do you have a recommendation?
Yeah, I do. I think if there's board consensus that goes on the website, then when that document's in its final form, we'll get it posted up.
Do we have board consensus for that?
Yes.
Yes. It's great to have all this information in one place and easily accessible. Thanks for all the hard work.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think that was her packet.
We'll move on to item E to discuss the high school new math course offering request.
Come on, math team.
Plus one.
So as we make our presentation tonight for you to see, one of the things I want you to understand is we have an outstanding math department here. I've got Mr. Frankowitz, who's, what did you get, 10 more years? We have Miss Franzen as well, and Mrs. DeRusso was going to try to be here tonight, but she has a full agenda at home. So with that, what I want to start out mentioning is the fact that they've done some really hard work in this process, and one of the terms that you heard today is helping all students learn. And that's one of the things we're trying to correct maybe in the math department. I think the last time I was up here, I mentioned the idea that we had freshmen coming in 3 years ago that 12% of them were not ready for high school algebra. 2 years ago, 24% were not ready. And this past year, 36% were not ready. That's a clear indication that something has to change. If you keep doing the same thing and you're getting a worse result, there's something that needs to take place. So this year we worked on a kind of a combined course with Math 180 in it that again has shown some results but isn't solving our issue. So what we're putting together this year is a little different format. Just a little side note, I had an opportunity to observe Mrs. DeRusso's classroom, and one of the things I told her is, if I learn it, you must be a really good teacher. And they were doing math expressions, and by the time I walked out of there, I know what a math expression is, which is amazing. So if I got it, I'm sure our students are getting it. That being said, the course that we're looking at offering next year, with your approval, is a course that they've spent a lot of time talking about what is it that the students that are coming in are not getting. We had a pre-algebra course, but the pre-algebra course was not a course, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a course that was as beneficial as we'd like it in creating kids to be ready for Algebra 1. So what they brainstormed through our PLC process is this idea, what are the concepts that they're missing, and how do we focus on those concepts? So the course, and if you take a look, I guess I got to find it. You know I'm going to need your help. I don't want to touch anything. Just wait. Excellent. Okay. So the course we're looking at creating, we've decided to call Math Foundations. And looking at what we're talking about here is adding Math Foundations, and again, the written work is in front of you, but Math Foundations would be a course that a student could earn math credit in. Okay? So in math, our students have to earn 3 math credits. So as a result, they could, if you take a look at the current requirement, we require 3 credits, Algebra 1, including Algebra 1, and 2 elective credits. So Math Foundations would be one of those elective credits. Math Foundations would help prepare them for Algebra 1. I'm going to show you, if you look at the information you have in front of you, you'll see that we have, what do we call it, a Rails map of what they can take. So by taking Math Foundations, it's not limiting you in any way. A math student in our building, if they really wanted to go after it, could take up to 8 math classes. Okay? So if you want to take 8 math classes and your math is your focus, even if you started in Math Foundations and created a solid foundation, and the light went on, you still have that opportunity to work well into advanced math. But the key and critical point here is making sure that we build a strong foundation with these students, and that's what we're trying to create with this process. So when we look at this, I'm going to switch slides unless you guys have something you want to add to what I've just said. Okay. So on the bottom of this slide is our railroad map. So by taking Math Foundations, I guess the most important part of what we're trying to communicate is that we're trying to really build that foundation and reduce that gap between middle school and high school. Okay? And I know the middle school is doing some things as well when we talk about vertical alignment to try to bridge that gap as well. But in the meantime, we've got students coming into high school that we have to service. And again, what our hope is that when this vertical alignment reduces that gap, that this course might actually go away. That students would come into the high school ready for algebra. Okay, that's our goal. But in the meantime, and that was always one of the things that frustrated me as an educator, every student counts and every year counts. So it's not like, well, it's too bad, you missed it. We want to try to figure out how do we close that gap and help every student be successful. How will this impact students? Students will have an opportunity to receive targeted intervention. As I mentioned, the course is designed to focus on the areas that they've already identified that students struggle with. Okay? So it's narrowed in scope in the sense of what we want to try to do to prepare them for Algebra 1. Students will move into Algebra 1 upon completion of the class, which is our goal. And once they get to Algebra 1 and through Algebra 1, then again, now they can make those choices. Now I'm going to be honest with you. We've got students with a variety of different skill sets. Okay, so that's why last year we reincorporated tech math. Because we have students, and again the percentage is small, but we have students that have just difficulty in general math concepts. We want to give them an avenue that they can be successful with, and it'll also help them their next level of education. Okay? So again, if you take a look back at the pathway that we talked about here, you could go from Algebra 1 to tech and career math. Okay? Now, by taking Math Foundations, Algebra 1, and tech career math, you've earned your 3 credits. Okay? If you decide that your foundation has become strong and you feel that math is something you're excited about now, which could happen, because it's kind of like this. It's like every time I go into Mrs. Nelson's Spanish class, and I go in more Spanish and they're speaking Spanish, I have no idea what they're saying. Okay, I have no idea what's going on because it's all in Spanish. Well, that's like that student that doesn't understand math walking into a math class without any foundation, I don't know what you're talking about. That's what we're trying to eliminate here. And again, that light may click on and they can move into all of our advanced math classes if it's their choice. Okay, it allows students who otherwise struggle to graduate and earn credits. And again, I've seen kids, certainly in my experience, struggle with this process, and even to the point where they can't graduate from high school because they couldn't earn the credits, especially when we talk about math. We want to eliminate that frustration. We want to give them the foundation, but we also want to help them be successful in the process. So what is our next? Well, I guess I'm ahead of the game here. Students will be selected for this class based on standardized test results and the 3 prior years of their math experience. So we can easily identify who these kids are, get them plugged in, and help them by getting involved in this course. So what are we asking for from you is the approval of this curriculum to allow us to schedule it for next year and begin closing that gap.
I think the biggest thing with a class like this is it gives students that little bit of confidence that they need, that I can do this, I can do math, and then they can actually move into the upper level courses so they can get through Algebra 1 and then move on. And usually that's what we've seen is the first class that they're able to finally be successful in, try and stop them. So it's a pretty amazing thing, but they need that. You know, if you put them straight into Algebra 1, we're finding that they're failing, and then they're going to fail again, and then they fail again, and they fail again. Then we have juniors that are taking pre-algebra or a similar course, and we don't want to see that. We want to be able to catch them right away and make them successful all the way through.
Mr. Frankwitz, anything to add to that?
Not really, just basically we should be setting kids up for success, not setting them up for failure. I mean, that's how I look at it. Put them in a spot where they have a chance to succeed and not in a spot where it's like, how do you catch a kid up from 2 or 3 grade levels below and get them on the grade level they're at the same time. I don't think we're talking about a huge number of kids here, hopefully not anyway. We're talking about a small group of kids that just need to have one extra course to get them ready for the Algebra 1 course.
Any questions for us?
I have a question. What are other school districts doing? Were our standards too high? No. Ms. Spooner?
No, we were doing our research, and every school district actually does have something that is similar to this class. Previously, we had the pre-algebra, but that had been, pulled from our offerings.
But prior to this, you would take Algebra 1, then you would take the career tech math, then maybe an Algebra 2 to get your 3 credits. So you would at least have had Algebra 2, or you've gone into geometry.
You'd have to do geometry.
So you'd have to do one of those. But what we're doing now is we're saying you don't have to take one of those 2 advanced. You can just take this entry level. And that'll be the
Well,
1
for
credit.
students who would need it, they'd come in and they'd have the Math Foundations course, which would get them ready for the algebra class. Our algebra it's difficult math. There's a lot in it. It is the 1 required course for the state and for the nation. Actually, algebra is the 1 required course. From there, they could move into either the tech career math or into geometry.
There was also a mention of, in the future, maybe we wouldn't need this, so it would go away and we'd go back to where we were. So is something being done at the middle school level so that our students are coming into the high school level? How is that being approached?
Yeah, that's a different conversation for a different time right now, yeah. I just, I want to take my hat off and applaud your efforts to really approach this in a in a systematic way. You very clearly have done your homework drilling down on student data and being able to establish that historical trace. And I think what's most important is your ability to come together as a department and a school and say, here's the extra scoop of support that we think our students need to have. So very good job on that. And I look at the outcomes and the benchmarks that have been drafted up. It's 3 key concepts, and it's 3 pieces being assessed within each of those. And if students can demonstrate proficiency in those pieces, then they can have that confidence that they need to move forward with that math progression. Because as Mr. Schurz spoke to, boy, if everybody's speaking Spanish around you and you don't speak that language, it's hard to move forward. But if you have that basic set of skills, you can move forward with confidence, and there is no stopping kids then.
And I just have one quick question. This is for, are you assessing these students as they're coming in to the high school then? So are you using that data prior to them scheduling? And then
We have done that in the past, actually, with the algebra readiness test and the STAR data. I don't know if they're still doing the STAR data down there, but that was what we were using to put kids into class before that were in the intervention class already.
Okay, and then are you still giving that same opportunity to those kids, those small group of kids that are ahead of the game, to be able to go right into the algebra class and move on then to their advanced math?
I think those kids are actually able to move right into geometry. Okay. If they already have the algebra skills in 8th grade, and there's probably just as many of those as there are on the other end, to be honest with you, they already have that ability to just go right into the geometry and end up in calculus as a junior.
Okay.
And again, that's our goal, to meet the need of all students. And that's what we're trying to create in this process.
Okay. Thank you.
And that's what I see this doing. I don't see any negative to it. Is there anything that you could speak to that would be a downfall of adding this class? It seems to only be an added support for students that need support.
And one of the things I want you to understand is, in not that it's being overlooked, but you don't see the work behind the scenes of what our math department has. They're obviously, all 3 of them, very passionate about what they do, because the work that they've put in during our Rails time to get these students that are deficient in these areas is amazing. I get to witness it every day of what they're doing with some of our really, what we've termed as intentional non-learners, and getting them back and hooked into what math is all about. And this just gives us a better tool to equip not only our teachers, but our students in giving them success in math, that we just didn't have that prong before.
And I guess I'd like to add to that is, I think, when you look at it from outside the box, it looks like it's all upside. But my caution would be that we shouldn't let kids use this class as an easy out. That should be in Algebra 1 and think, I don't want to work that hard. And I think we got to be careful that we don't let that happen. That would be the only downfall I can think of the whole process. Okay. If kids would see it as an easy out, they hear some other kid going, we're only doing this, and no.
Well, that's why this class would be selection only.
Right.
They wouldn't be able to choose this class.
It's very similar to what we do with tech math. Again, we're trying to give the kids those options to help them, not to deflect and get out of something.
So just next step-wise then, so this is part of the process that's in your board policy, and that is, Mr. Schurz and the math faculty from the high school are here making a request for you to adopt a new course. So we'd look for your consensus to roll this forward to the regular meeting agenda for consideration of being adopted at that time.
Do we have general consensus from the board to move this forward to the regular board meeting?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be moving on to item F, the WIAA Boys Soccer Cooperative Renewal. This is for information only. So,
Anything you want to say about it?
Any questions or comments on that? Okay, thank you for that information. We're moving on to item G, list of early graduates, also informational only. So we've all had that on our board docs to review.
We wish them all the very best as they take this important next step.
The next couple of weeks will determine for sure.
Who does? And they're all able to come back and participate in graduation if they desire. Okay, great. We'll move on to item H, the library media plan presentation.
All right, for tonight regarding this item, just real quick here, the library media plan is something that is required through state statute that every school district have a long-range plan. That plan was last updated quite a while ago, back around 2014. So with Mrs. Fiesel joining us in that role now, we felt this was a good time to address that and update it in a framework that matches the direction the state is going and to make sure that plan addresses and matches what our district's initiatives are in that, so.
Yeah, so you all have access to the plan, the entire 8 pages of it. What we did was we utilized the Future Ready framework, which comes from the DPI kind of as our guideline in outlining that plan. So the goal is just to reflect how our media centers are supporting district curriculum as our libraries and all of our buildings, and also how our technology initiatives tie into all of that. So again, the plan just outlines kind of the current status of where we are in those different areas of the Future Ready framework, as well as identifying some goals that we have moving forward.
And then the only second portion of this is that in the review and working through the update of this plan, we discovered that prior to moving to Neola, we had a board policy that addressed what is called interlibrary loan. In other words, districts will share resources back and forth if needed. That did not carry over in the migration to Neola. So working with the district office, we've determined where that appropriate policy is, and that is the second item that was listed in the addendum there, which is, it is Neola policy 7550, which covers interlibrary loan, but it also covers joint use of facilities for funds that might be used by the district. So real quickly, I guess an example would that be interlibrary loan, what we maybe would loan to another district or look to borrow from another district to meet our needs or their needs. But also a good example from the tech world is we coordinate or partner with the county, the city, to jointly expend funds for our network, provide broadband access to the school, the city, the county, for the benefit of everybody. So this policy is there as kind of for you to look at it for a first reading, hopefully to adopt, that would support both this plan and just some other things we do in the district.
I have a question about the plan. In some places, it refers to the library media specialist, and in other places, the tech integration specialist. Is that the terminology? I'm not finding it right now. Can you clarify that?
We can clarify that by probably going back and updating it so it's consistent. What we got here is Mrs. Fiesel has been working towards getting that certification for the traditional library media specialist, but in moving that role forward, she is also tasked with technology integration. So her role encompasses both worlds, and so is our intent to kind of cover that in terms of what she does moving forward. So we can certainly update that verbiage, so it's correct and consistent.
We tried to catch most of them, but.
Okay. And so as far as in PI 801, where it talks about designating a licensed library media person, is that we're okay because
Yes, so currently I have a license with stipulations, so working toward rolling that over, which we're waiting on some answers from DPI as far as what that looks like. My part is done, just waiting to find out who exactly it needs to go to once it leaves us, so waiting game.
Yeah, and we've been waiting on DPI, not the other way around.
Right, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Do we have consensus to move both the plan and the first reading, or the policy, to the regular board meeting? Yes.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much for your work on this. Moving on to item I, discuss open enrollment seats for 2020 and 2021.
The Board of Education per statute is supposed to set their open enrollment seats for the next year in January. So this is about the third or fourth year we've gone through this process. You have the memo that walks you through class sizes for regular education and then the open seats as well as special education. I will touch on the regular education and then I'll have Mr. Ham go ahead and touch on the special education and his process. So we'll just walk through it. I won't walk through each class. I'll just let you know by building level how many seats are open. At the elementary, we have 70 available seats for next year. At the middle school, we have 76 available seats. And at the high school, we have 0 available seats, which is pretty typical, as when high school transfers come in, there's sometimes an attachment, either an expulsion or something that we like to take a look at and have the ability to say yes or no when those students come in. One caveat for this year, if you go to the bottom, underneath the special education portion, there is a paragraph there, and I'm just going to read through that. Additionally, according to DPI, if a school board's open enrollment policy states that the board may guarantee approval to currently attending applicants or siblings of currently attending students, the school board must decide in January whether it will guarantee approval to those applicants in the upcoming application period. Our newly updated open enrollment policy contains this verbiage. The recommendation from administration is to guarantee acceptance to any currently attending applicants or siblings of currently attending students. So I just wanted to point that out. I'll have Mitch or Mr. Ham go over the special education seats available.
Most of you that have been on the board have been through this a little bit before, so if there are questions, I know that there's a rather lengthy document in there that you've probably had a chance to take a look at, but in a nutshell, what it does is it compares our special education students based on their support needs and the services that they are provided with a matrix number, which comparative to one regular education student, it might be a 1.7, it might be a 3.4. So it kind of evens the playing field as far as caseloads. More support needs for our special education students, generally speaking, so that number would be higher, so the caseloads would be smaller. You can see what the state recommendation is in that report. You can see where each of our areas are, elementary, middle, and high school. The one thing that I would note, there was no open enrollment seats at the middle school last year, but we have 13 kids rolling from 8th grade to the high school this coming year, and we have 4 kids coming in the 4th grade. So we just have a year where we've got a low number of kids in a grade coming up, high number of kids coming out, but that's fluctuated in the time that I've been here, and it will in a district this size. So we've actually moved staff around one time in the time that I was here. When it came in, we had 1 additional person at the high school that we ended up, when we had an opening, moving and hiring at the middle school. So we've got 4 there when we had 3 in the past. We just kind of have to watch those numbers and adjust accordingly based on that caseload. This is the first time in the district that I've been here, and thanks to you approving last year additional speech and language, but this is the first time that we've been within the state recommendations on caseload size and speech and language in the 4 years that I've been here. So thank you for the resources that you've provided for the kids in the district. And those are things that we're really starting to see and should start paying dividends down the road too. So, any questions?
So we're just looking for consensus to roll this for approval at the board meeting in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Do we have consensus to roll this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item J, to discuss the RFP for audit services.
Again, just information only, just to let the board know that we're going to go back out again. We went through the process last year. Unfortunately, we only had one company provide an RFP. We're going to extend the timeline on this round and see what we can get.
Okay. Thank you. Item K, discuss teacher makeup time contingency.
Well, I'm going to take you back about a year ago at this time. We started to have some very significant weather with cold and then snowstorm after snowstorm, and we wound up with quite a bit of makeup time that was involved as a result of that. So the board did a really good job of adopting pieces in the current employee handbook that I think clarifies and provides some equity across the employee categories for some time being forgiven and some pieces that can be done with other categories of leave to some gaps in that. What we wanted to talk a little bit about tonight was to run a concept by you for a contingency if we did get into another situation again this year or next year, where we've had our 2 snow days, our 2 weather days, or our closure days that are forgiven, and then we are in a make-up position. And so here is a concept that comes forward from the administrative team. And again, for the third closing day and beyond, that work would be done off-site, and it would be predetermined at the building or department level what that work would be specifically, but it would be focused on strategic priority number 1, advancing student achievement in this district. So examples might be that teams of teachers are working online with professional learning community plans or data analysis, and you heard some conversation from the elementary team about that tonight, about how more time is needed for that kind of work. It could be unit development, it could be unpacking curriculum standards, it could be any number of things, but it would be targeted work that has been established in advance and then could be executed on very short notice, as we have when we close school for a day. Each individual would log their time via a Google form that's been put together, and that would be tracked by the building principals. So what we're seeking is school board consensus to proceed with this practice through this year, and I hope I don't jinx things now by bringing this up and now we have a bunch of snow days, but we try it for the remainder of this year and next year and really take a look at how that works. I think you're hearing real clearly from your building teams as they come in and present that time is absolutely critical, and we certainly don't want to be creating makeup events for the sake of creating time, creating things to do to fill time, and there's definitely some very important and meaningful work taking place out there that could be done in a scenario as we've described here, where teams may not be able to get into the building during the day, but they certainly would have meaningful work to be working on during that time.
Would this predetermined work have to be done on that specific day, or could a person use that as a makeup day, maybe the following Sunday they could do it?
No, so the intent would be that those days where school is not in session, that staff are not having to make that time up. So that would be their work for the day.
For that day?
For that day, correct.
Any other questions? Do we need to move this to the next board meeting?
I think if you're at consensus that this sounds like a good practice, your language in your employee handbook would certainly provide that as a course action.
Okay.
One quick question, is there kind of broad topics that can be worked on that are planned, ahead of time? where it sounds like a lot of work is always kind of evolving, and all of a sudden we have a snow day, and what's the plan there? There's broad enough topics that they can focus on?
Each of the buildings is working on the professional learning community work this year, and each of the buildings has identified pieces that teams could work on if that were the case. Also, we know that we're really in the throes of trying to stand up 2 key areas of curriculum right now, English language arts and math. And again, at all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high school, there's work that can be done around the unpacking of those standards. Also, a piece that you heard tonight is the ability for special education teachers to be part of that process as well. So again, I think that creates some really good opportunities. So each of the buildings has worked up kind of a list of I guess I'd call it a work plan. They've developed a work plan that could be executed on short notice and a way to track that.
Is there, I know everybody doesn't have the internet, so this is optional?
Yes, it would be optional. I think that some of it might require the internet, some of it might be more so staff downloading material to their computer so that they could work on it if they were off-site.
That's my question. Is this something a person could be disciplined for if they don't log in on that day?
No.
Okay.
It's we're trying to provide teachers with more options after the volume of feedback that we got last year from the makeup process.
Right. So it's really optional then?
Well, the days have to be made up.
Yeah, it's not optional makeup time unless someone would seek to have a payroll deduction at the end of the year.
Right.
Could they opt out of this work on a snow day? They could. However, when you're a part of a team, we hope that people would engage and be part of that important work going forward.
The example would be, let's say we go away for Thanksgiving break, and the Sunday before the school comes back Monday, a staff member's trapped down in the Twin Cities or somewhere and isn't even home, and there's a snow day on Monday. They don't have the ability to log in. They don't have the ability to make it up later on, but they're not going to be disciplined if they miss anyhow.
They won't be disciplined if they missed it. Okay. They would have the ability to make up that time later on.
So it could be done on like next Sunday or something.
Yeah, so you're getting into kind of incident-specific pieces, Mr. Johnson.
I'm trying to look for them.
And right now, we're just really looking at a broad concept and looking to have consensus with that.
All right.
I think that the concept is to put the responsibility on our staff that are professionals and willing to work and do their jobs and are invested in our students, and trusting that they're going to do and use their time that they've asked for appropriately and dedicated to the work of student achievement. And I think it's giving building principals the responsibility of managing that with their own staff. And so I think that it's a great plan going forward. It shows that we trust our principal staff, our administration, and our staff at the building level. So do we have general consensus that this is all right with our board?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item L, the 30, 60, 90-day planning document, which has been provided on board docs. Are there any questions or comments about that? Okay, we'll just put that on record.
Yep, and I'd just like to say, it's really nice to get this document, so the fact that the building admin and the leaders are putting this stuff together for us and collaborating and just giving us this timeline is really great. It's nice to see. Thank you.
Yes. We'll be moving on to item M, the financial update.
I'll just walk you through quickly the November financial statement. The beginning balance in the checking account was $756,360. We took in total receipts for the month of $1,512,166. We had total expenditures for the month of $1,371,471, leaving the checking account balance at $140,694.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the financial update?
Where do we stand with the projections for deficits for this fiscal year? Any
Well, we ran.
guidance on that?
Yep, we ran mid-year projections, mid-year expenditures right before Christmas, and everything is running on or below what we have budgeted for the year. Of course, we're coming into a season where a lot of things could potentially go haywire, so we'll just see, we'll run another projection probably at the end of March to see where we are.
So that means we're on target to be 100,000
Approximately,
deficit?
it was approximately a little shy of 100,000. I think it was 98 or 97,000, yep.
Okay, thank you.
No haywires.
No. All right, thank you for that update. And item N is the December vouchers. Were there any questions on vouchers? Do we have consensus to roll those to the regular board meeting?
Yes.
All right, thank you. And we will convene into closed session now. Do we need a roll call vote? A motion to convene into closed session.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Yes.
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 Reconvene, right, into open
Aye.
session?
Second.
I'll entertain a motion to reconvene into open session.
Make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now in open session. It's now 7:25 PM. The board, in closed session, there was a consideration of a contract, consideration for the 2020, 2021, and the 2021 to 2022 school years for Dr. David Aslan. In closed session, the board did approve that contract.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.